She was the one person I was never supposed to notice that way, but the moment my professor smiled at me and whispered, "You're my favorite student," everything changed. The story opens with atmosphere, a quiet classroom at dusk. The narrator, a young man in his early 20s, notices the subtle ways his professor carries herself, poised, calm, with an ease that comes from years of experience, but softened by a warmth that makes people want to listen. Her hair catches the fading light through the tall windows, and for a moment, he thinks she looks more like a painting than a person sitting at her desk. He recalls how he's always admired her, not in the way most students admire a mentor, but with a lingering awareness he tries to push away. She's older, respected, and careful about her boundaries. Still, there are fleeting moments, the way her laugh lingers a second too long, the way her eyes pause on him when she asks a question in class. He tells himself it's nothing, but deep down, it stirs something restless. One evening, as students file out after a long seminar, he lingers, gathering his notes slower than usual. The room grows quiet, the shuffle of papers replaced by the low hum of the heating system. She looks up from her desk, eyes meeting his, and she smiles. Not the polite, passing smile she gives everyone, but something warmer, softer, almost secret. Then, almost playfully, she leans slightly forward and says in a lowered voice, "You're my favorite student, but don't tell the others." The words land heavier than they should. His chest tightens, and he feels a sudden rush of heat under his collar. He laughs lightly, trying to mask how much it affects him, but inside he's replaying her smile, the curve of her lips, the softness in her tone. Was she teasing? Encouraging? Or did she mean more? Walking home that evening, he can't stop thinking about it. The city lights blur past him, and his steps feel unsteady as though her words have knocked something loose inside. He notices the warmth of her voice still echoing in his mind, how intimate it felt to be singled out. The days after her quiet confession, "You're my favorite student," feel different. The classroom hasn't changed, the lessons follow the same rhythm, yet he feels every moment stretched taut with an awareness he didn't have before. He catches himself waiting for her glance, leaning forward slightly when she speaks, just to feel closer. But she's careful. In front of the others, she's all professionalism, poised voice, measured steps, her hair tied neatly at the back of her neck, glasses slipping down the bridge of her nose when she reads. She treats him no differently than anyone else, or at least, that's what she wants it to look like. Still, he notices the subtle shifts. A pause in her gaze when he answers a question, a faint smile when he lingers after class, the way her hand brushes his papers a second longer than necessary when returning assignments. It's maddening, these small signals, these whispers of something she'll never name aloud. He tells himself it's all in his head, that he's imagining the warmth behind her eyes. Yet, every detail feels deliberate, and the tension grows like a quiet storm. One afternoon, he stays behind again, pretending to fix the notes in his journal. She finishes her lecture, students trickle out, and soon it's just the two of them. The silence feels fragile, like glass. She gathers her books slowly, aware of his presence. For a moment, their eyes lock, and neither of them looks away. She clears her throat softly, breaking the spell. "You're very engaged in class," she says, her voice warm but steady, as if she's choosing her words carefully. He nods, heart pounding. "It's easy to be engaged when the subject's taught like this," he replies, meaning more than he dares to admit. There's a flicker in her expression, something unguarded, almost vulnerable. But just as quickly, she tucks it away behind a professional smile. She walks past him toward the door, her perfume trailing faintly in the air, a delicate, almost floral scent that lingers long after she's gone. That night, he can't shake the weight of it. The distance between them feels both unbearable and necessary. He knows the boundaries, the risks, the impossibility of what he's starting to feel. And yet, each moment with her only pulls him further in, as if the unspoken truth between them has already taken root. The weeks pass, and the connection grows in subtle, unspoken ways. He begins to notice the little details of her life, how she always keeps a thermos of tea at her desk, the faint crease between her brows when she's lost in thought, the way her laughter seems freer when she forgets herself for a moment. These observations make her feel less like Professor and more like a woman, one whose presence unsettles and grounds him at the same time. One late evening, he finds himself in the nearly empty library, surrounded by towers of books for a paper that's due. The silence is heavy, broken only by the scratch of his pen. Then he hears her voice, soft but clear, asking if he's still working. He looks up to see her standing a few rows away, a stack of books in her arms. She looks different outside the classroom, her coat draped over one arm, her hair a little looser, her smile gentler without the shield of authority. She steps closer, her heels muffled against the carpet, and sets her books down near him. They talk in low voices, the kind that naturally slip into intimacy because the world around them is hushed. She asks about his progress, and he admits he's been overthinking, doubting himself. Her response surprises him. She speaks about her own struggles as a student, how she once felt the same. For the first time, he sees not just the polished professor, but the woman who had once been uncertain, vulnerable, human. Their conversation drifts beyond academics, toward music, childhood memories, little fragments of their worlds that shouldn't overlap, but suddenly do. Time stretches, and before either of them realizes it, the library is closing. As they stand to leave, their hands brush while gathering the books. It's nothing more than skin against skin, a fleeting contact, but it feels like a spark has passed between them. She hesitates, glancing at him with wide eyes, as if she felt it too. For a heartbeat, it seems as though something might happen, something they can't take back. But then she exhales, steadying herself, and steps back. "We should go," she says quietly, her voice softer than before. They walk out together into the cool night air, their shoulders nearly touching but never quite meeting. That night, lying awake, he replays the moment their hands touched, over and over, wondering what would have happened if she hadn't pulled away. It wasn't a kiss, wasn't a confession, yet it felt like standing on the edge of something they're both afraid to fall into. After the night in the library, something shifts. They never speak of it directly, but the air between them feels charged, fragile, as though a single word could tip them into something neither is prepared to face. In class, her professionalism is flawless. She delivers her lectures with the same composure, answering questions with patience, guiding discussions with calm authority. Yet, he can't ignore the subtle signs. When she looks at him, her gaze lingers a second longer. When she passes him a paper, her fingers seem to brush his deliberately, even if only for a breath. These are small, deniable gestures, but for him, they feel like quiet admissions she can't put into words. One rainy afternoon, he ducks into her office to return a book she loaned him. The window is fogged, the room dim with the gray light outside. She looks up from her desk, glasses sliding slightly as she offers a tired smile. He sets the book down, and for a moment, neither of them says anything. The rain against the window fills the silence. She asks about his paper, and they talk. But the conversation drifts again, this time into territory that feels dangerously personal. She tells him about her love of rainy days, how she used to sit by windows as a girl, writing stories in her notebook. He shares a memory of his own, how the sound of storms always made him feel less alone. Their words weave together until it feels less like professor and student, more like two people simply being. Then comes the pause. The kind of silence that doesn't need filling. He notices the way her hand rests on the edge of her desk, close enough that if he reached out, their fingers would meet. He feels the pull, almost unbearable. Her eyes flicker down at his hand, then back up to his face. For a second, it seems as though neither of them will resist. But she's the one who breaks it. She shifts slightly, pulling her hand back to her lap, her voice steadier than her expression. "You should get going before the rain gets worse," she says, a softness in her tone that contradicts the dismissal. He nods, gathering his things, but as he leaves, he feels the weight of what just passed, the near touch, the unspoken pull, the fragile line they keep pretending not to cross. That night, he understands something clearly for the first time: what's growing between them isn't an illusion. It's real, undeniable, and dangerously close to becoming something neither of them can hide. The weight of silence becomes harder to carry. Weeks of shared glances, fleeting touches, and unspoken words have built a quiet tension neither can fully ignore. It feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, every step forward dangerous, every step back impossible. One evening, after class, she asks him to stay behind to help organize some papers. The request is casual, her tone steady, but he senses the undercurrent immediately. The classroom empties, leaving only the faint echo of doors closing and the two of them alone. He stacks papers at her desk while she tucks books into her bag. The closeness is ordinary in appearance, but charged beneath the surface. When the last paper is set down, he lingers, his hands resting lightly on the desk. She looks up at him, and for a long moment, neither moves. The silence grows thick, filled with everything they've avoided saying. Finally, almost in a whisper, he admits, "It's hard, pretending I don't notice the way I feel around you." Her breath catches, so faint it could be missed. She doesn't answer immediately, her eyes searching his face with a mixture of longing and fear. He sees it then, the vulnerability she's tried so carefully to hide. "You shouldn't say things like that," she murmurs, but her voice wavers. She's warning him, yet the warmth in her eyes betrays her words. He steps back slightly, giving her space, though his heart is hammering. "I know," he replies softly, "but I couldn't keep it in any longer." For a moment, she looks torn apart inside. She grips the edge of the desk, as if grounding herself. Then, almost against her own will, she reaches out. Her hand brushes his arm, barely there, trembling, yet full of meaning. It's not an embrace, not even a firm touch, but it sends a shiver through him all the same. Her eyes glisten, her lips part as though she might say something more, but then she pulls back quickly, the restraint snapping into place. "We can't," she says, voice low but firm, though the ache behind it is unmistakable. The moment ends there, fragile and unfinished, leaving him both devastated and strangely hopeful. Because in that fleeting touch, that almost confession, he felt her truth, she feels it too. That night, he lies awake replaying her trembling hand against his arm. It wasn't rejection. It was fear, hesitation, and something far deeper. For the first time, he believes that what lies between them is not just one-sided, it's shared, though neither of them dares to name it aloud. After that fragile confession, everything feels sharper. Every glance, every word, every silence between them is laced with awareness. He tries to focus on his studies, she tries to keep her composure in class, but it's like trying to ignore a flame that's already caught fire. One evening, a campus event runs late, and he finds himself walking across the quiet courtyard when he spots her leaving the faculty building. She looks surprised to see him, but her smile is genuine, soft in the glow of the street lamps. The night is cool, a hint of wind brushing through the trees, carrying the scent of rain. They fall into step together, their voices hushed as if the night itself demands secrets. They talk about ordinary things at first, the day, the noise of the event, the papers piling up, but beneath it all runs the pulse of something heavier. Every brush of her sleeve against his, every glance that lingers too long, feels like a tether pulling them closer. When they reach the library steps, she pauses, as though she doesn't want the walk to end. He notices her hesitation, the way she grips the strap of her bag a little tighter. Finally, in a low, almost broken voice, she says, "Do you ever think about how complicated this is?" The question knocks the air out of him. He doesn't answer right away, because the truth is written in every restless night he's had, every thought he's tried to silence. When he finally speaks, his voice is steady. "Every day. But I also think about how it feels when I'm with you. And nothing else comes close." Her breath trembles in the air. For a moment, she looks away, as if searching for strength in the shadows around them. Then she steps closer, close enough that he feels the warmth of her body against the cool night. Her hand brushes against his, slow, deliberate, not by accident this time. The world seems to still around them. She closes her eyes briefly, fighting something within herself, then whispers, "This isn't supposed to happen." But she doesn't pull away. Their hands finally meet, fingers intertwining hesitantly, like a secret sealed in touch. It isn't a kiss. It isn't a declaration. But standing there with her hand in his, the night wrapping around them, he knows they've crossed the line they've both been pretending to hold. And though she eventually lets go, the imprint of her hand lingers in his, proof that hiding is no longer possible. After that night on the library steps, everything feels different. They don't speak of it aloud, yet their unspoken truth follows them everywhere. In class, her voice is steady, but when her eyes drift to his, he sees the warmth she can't quite hide. For him, every ordinary exchange now carries weight, the passing of a paper, a brief word after lecture, the way her smile flickers when she forgets to guard herself. And yet, there's a heaviness. The reality of their positions presses down. She is his professor, admired, respected, he is still her student, younger, caught between admiration and desire. Both of them know the risks, the whispers that could follow, the questions they could never fully answer. It comes to a quiet breaking point one afternoon. The semester is nearing its end, and he lingers after class again. She doesn't ask why, she simply waits as he gathers his courage. His voice is low when he finally speaks, "I don't want this to just be silence anymore." She exhales slowly, her eyes glistening as if the words are ones she's longed to hear yet feared. Stepping closer, she admits in a trembling voice, "Do you think I don't feel it too? Every time I look at you, I wonder how I let this happen." He reaches out, not boldly, but gently, his hand brushing against hers on the desk. She doesn't pull away this time. Instead, she turns her palm to meet his, their fingers resting together, quiet and steady. "It's not easy," she whispers, "and it won't be simple." He shakes his head lightly. "I don't care if it's simple. I just care that it's real." For a long moment, they stay like that, hands entwined, silence wrapping around them like something fragile and sacred. No declarations, no dramatic promises. Just two people choosing to stop denying what has been growing between them all along. The warmth of her hand lingers with him as he leaves her office that day. The world outside is unchanged, students rush across campus, the sun dips low in the sky, but within him, something has shifted. The quiet ache has turned into something steadier, a bond they've both chosen, despite the fear, despite the rules. The story ends not with a kiss or a grand gesture, but with the certainty of something deeper. A connection neither of them can deny, carried in every glance, every touch, every word unspoken. A slow burn flame, no longer hidden, but cherished. If this story touched you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes in unexpected love. And if you'd like to hear more age gap romances told this way, the next story is waiting for you on my channel.